Hey guys, Darren Kelly, Coach of Wise Pods, and welcome back to another episode post round 17, first round outside of the buys. Hopefully, you all had a great weekend, but it was a weekend of epic saves and epic fails in terms of trading targets, as a lot of the trade targets did fail to get the job done, unfortunately. So, a lot of people did potentially move back a little bit with some bad trade targets. But that pretty much started all the way back on Thursday night. We saw one of the best saves I've seen in a long time from an individual, and that was Sam Darcy. I just want to do a quick recap here of a couple of players that I thought get a bit of an honourable mention. He was on 23 points at three-quarter time, had a massive final quarter with 65 points, kicking three goals, had like 4 or 5 marks, and ended up getting to an 88. So that would have been very pleasant for those owners that did trade him in or have already had him, though thinking he was going to go big in this matchup. Would have been very nice just to see him pop a decent 88 in a forward line, which we know has been pretty bad. Uh, Backing that up on Friday night, we also saw Tom Green play against West Coast. He was on 51 points at the three-quarter time. He had a massive final quarter with 53 points, with 15 touches and 5 marks to get to 104. He was obviously a pretty big trade target for a lot of people with a decent fixture coming up. So people were pretty upset, three-quarter time, thinking they've traded in a dud. He eventually got it done. Zero tackles is a bit unusual for a guy like Tom Green. We know he's a pretty big tackler on his day. Haven't probably seen the highs from him so far this year, but we know he's pretty much he's a bull in there, so he's meant to be tackling as much as he can. Noah Anderson was another one who had a massive save, particularly in that second half of that game. He was on 22 points at halftime. It was looking shocking, particularly for me. I had him number 4 on my captain's list. It was not looking pleasant at all, but he had a massive 100-point second half to give his owners a nice 122 with a couple goals and just 30 touches and 8 marks, as he does, seems to do every single week. He got there in the end. And finally, Caldwell, who was the number one trade target for a lot of people last week. A lot of people broke their teams to get him in with a decent couple of matchups, but unfortunately he ended up getting himself a little bit injured with an ankle injury, and now potentially looks like he's going to be a forced trade this week, requiring surgery at this stage, is what the latest I'm hearing. So, yeah, he may be one that we have to trade out. And obviously the 79, when a lot of people were looking at him as a potentially captaincy option. I know he was number 2 on my captain's list, and he was number 2 on a lot of other captains' lists as well. So that was hugely disappointing and was a bit of a failed trade-in target there. And yeah, unfortunate for those owners that do have to now trade him out. Quick shout out to also Champion Data as well. Just they seem like they were on an absolute tear this weekend, purely based on tackle numbers. We saw the likes of Rao with 17 tackles. Atkins had also a huge number as well. Let's have a look here. He had 17 tackles as well, and then obviously Jack Steele, who we all know is a very renowned tackler, he also had 15. So they were really targeting these tackle numbers. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on in the future, if that's something that they're going to continue to focus on this throughout the remainder of this season. These tacklers definitely could have a big end of the season as the game sort of gets a bit more contested as the weather gets colder and we get closer and closer to the end of the season. The game style potentially starts to slow down a fair bit. So just something I wanted to mention there. But the icing on the cake for the weekend pretty much was the Bailey Smith laid out news. Once again, this man just seems to miss every other game every 3 weeks. So he was a massive issue that a lot of people had to figure out whether they had enough cover or whether they were able to pivot here and there. So yeah, that hopefully you had a decent cover if you did hold him or your trades were locked out. I know a lot of people were locked out early on in the week, so it just probably a little bit of a reminder that when try not to use your trades too early, especially on a Thursday night. A lot can happen between Thursday and a Sunday, so that was pretty disappointing. But that's a pretty good transition, I guess, to how my team went this week. Bailey Smith, I did ultimately end up trading him out. I did move him on after that late out news. I was playing around. Okay, I hadn't locked up my trades yet. The only trade I didn't had locked out was the Finn O'Sullivan, which at the end of the day I was happy with him going anyway. He ended up dropping a little bit in coin. Yeah, 15k with a 35. So ultimately happy with him to go. And I was able to trade out Bailey Smith to Brian Myers, who I was obviously very hot on last week. He was my second trade-in target throughout my top overall in terms of all the players that I could have picked. He was one I was hugely targeting. He scored okay with just a 102 there. It was a little bit disappointing though. I won't lie. He was looking on track for big. I think he was on 89 at 3/4 time. Only had a 13-point final quarter, so just didn't really get hugely involved in that final quarter. Should have been a 110, 120 plus on his day. So was hoping for a bit more reward there just to get that benefit of those that were having to hold Bailey Smith and having to rely on a better cover there. It could have gave me 50, 60 points on top of, especially if I had Kyle Lohman or even an Archer Day. Would have been nice just to continue to get those extra points on field. But nevertheless, still happy with a 102, so that trade was okay. However, Tom Stewart was the letdown of my trades. Was expecting a bit of a pop score for him with the best matchup in the league, and he just really didn't get amongst it. Only 5 marks when I was expecting 10 plus, even closer to 15. Jack Martin, surprisingly, was the man that took a lot of the points off of him. He went on to score a ton and had like 10 marks himself. So maybe that's a bit of a concern for myself with Tom Stewart. Maybe he's just purely playing that quarterback off halfback and not being the ball user anymore, just purely being an interceptor. So that is a little bit of concern, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll still be able to use him as a bit of a looping option here and there as we get into this 23rd premium stage. But overall, happy with my trades in the sense that I was still able to get a premium, but while also trading out a Bailey Smith at the same time. But be interesting to see where I go this week, just because obviously Bailey Smith, huge out. If he plays this week, he will obviously be a pretty prime target. He does have GWS this weekend, who on paper have been a tough matchup so far this season. They have gotten a lot easier. Just in the last 10, they are, the 6th easiest matchup with plus 2.63 points. So, yeah, he's obviously a huge one that I'll need to target. He also scored a 149 against them earlier in the season. So, yeah, that's obviously something that I've got to be aware of. But who knows if he's going to play or not. He's obviously dealing with something. I think it was illness on the weekend, so you'd think he'd be back, but there's no guarantees on that just yet. But my team scored a 23-35, so overall pretty happy with it. I was quite surprised, to be honest. I thought I was on for a pretty bad one, just Tom Stewart coming in. Wasn't the greatest. I wasn't able to get Tom McCarthy on field as he scored okay. I had Sam Doherty, Long, Anderson, Brayshaw, Nick Martin, but I guess these guys are all pretty popular in the sense that a lot of people have them. So, besides Tom Stewart, obviously. So, yeah, I had a lot of these poor scores, but ultimately weren't too bad. Had a few ceiling scores, but I didn't have the likes of a Rowan Marshall who went 140. That was a lot of points left on the field. Who else went pretty big? Where is it? Let's get rid of that. I could have gone in as Zach Merritt. That was obviously one I could have missed. I should have said that. I could have left a lot of points on the trading table. I had a little over $1 million to go to any player besides Tom Stewart, but I decided to bank a little bit of coin just with the fact that obviously I wanted to target Bailey Smith again coming into this round. So I need a little bit of money in the bank if I'm looking to trade up, one of these middling sort of forward guys, whether it's a Rankin or a Daniel or even a Long. I need a good 200-300k to get up to a Bailey Smith again or any sort of player that I'm looking at. So I did go the cheaper option, did bank myself I think about 150 odd k, so have that money in the bank. But yeah, I could have gone to the likes of a Jack Steele who went on to score a 130. I couldn't afford an Errol Gordon, unfortunately. I probably would have gone there if I could, but obviously could have gone Merritt as well. He did play the game beforehand, so I would have had to pull the trigger early. Congratulations if you did that. That was a pretty bold move. He should go well again this week, but we'll talk about him a little bit more in trade mode. I probably wouldn't recommend trading him in this week unless you're looking just for one week of pop, and then you're looking to trade him out because he does have a bit of a tougher run coming up in terms of tags and whatnot. So there is that. But yeah, overall happy with how my team performs. Obviously around rank of 1500. Again, probably could have been a little bit higher. but considering I took the aggressive approach to trade at Bailey Smith, I probably would have liked a little bit more. Did jump me up about 600 spots in overall ranking, finally into the top 2K now. Really targeting that top 1K to finish off the season with 7 weeks to go. Hopefully the team can keep rolling. But my +3 can go to McKercher this week. I think he just deserves a bit of a reward after bringing him in. Post his bye, he's been sort of putting up decent numbers, but it was finally good to see he put up a really, really, really nice 120 plus. And the role was obviously as expected, but they were sort of slowing it down a little bit. As I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I just wanted to see this chipping around a little bit, sideways moving, and he obviously got amongst that with 9 tackles this weekend. So hopefully that's something that we can continue to see. He does have a very good matchup in Melbourne this weekend, so expecting another big score. If you don't have him, he's potentially a target. You are paying significantly more than a lot of other we have all paid for him. I think I paid 200k cheaper than what he is now, but if he is still value at the end of the day, still priced around that 80, 85-ish now, so he probably still has 10 points to put on top of that anyway, so still not a bad target, but here's my +3 this weekend. My -3 probably goes to my lowest score on field, which was a Nick Martin. Was expecting a decent score, not a massive score, but definitely a decent score this weekend up against Gold Coast Suns, who are one of the best matchups for midfielders specifically. He just didn't really look likely at all to get around the ball. 74, very disappointing. He is now plummeting in cash with a high break even, 55k on the weekend, and 52 break even. He does have Richmond though, however, so he will be one that we highly look at this weekend in terms of captaincy. He obviously went 166 early in the year when he versed them, so expecting another very similar score to that, hopefully, and hopefully that break even gets smashed anyway. So not that I wouldn't be moving off him. That's obvious, but yeah, hopefully that's a bit of a rocket up him to get him fired up for this weekend to be a big score for this weekend. Captaincies, I was going Bailey Smith as my VC, as I did say on Thursday. Obviously, with him being a laid out, trading him out, I did pivot to Max Holmes. Pretty straightforward there. Obviously, when Bailey Smith is out, Holmes usually goes pretty big. 122, probably a little bit underwhelming with just 1 tackle, but I'm happy there at the end of the day. 122 is not too bad at all, so I was happy to take that. And I was going into Brodie Grundy as my safe C option, so I was happy there at the end of the day with a 113. Could have been a little bit bigger with a quieter fourth quarter with only 16 points. Yeah, Sydney had the game sort of wrapped up, so he didn't really get involved as much, but he is still continuing his 110 plus ton run for the last 7 weeks or 8 weeks, however long that is now. Yeah, he is just a prime mover. Got a good matchup this weekend against Royal Marshall, so again, could be another big option that if you're looking to trade in a ruckman, could definitely be a target for you there. I guess quickly getting into some highlights of players. Obviously, Nasiah was a huge captaincy. If you went there, that was pretty brave. I didn't expect to see that from against Hawks. I thought they'd put some work into him. They tried, but it really didn't work at all. Didn't really have the the Magnusons of the world to really stop him. So yeah, that's a bit unfortunate for as a Hawks fan, but at the end of the day, we got the win, so I'm happy there. Anyways, 43 touches though is just insane. 6 marks, 2 tackles, and could have been much bigger with three behinds for a 145. If you did the captaincy, very well done to you. He was on an absolute tear, and again, I keep saying it every single week, he's just putting up these massive numbers. He's very highly averaging, and yeah, if you don't own him, he is just hurting your season every single week. So Mills was another one that I wanted to highlight, just with him obviously returning to a bit of form. 95 again, could have been slightly bigger with a quieter final quarter again. I think he was on 79 at 3/4 time, so just another standard. Would have been nice to see him hit the ton, but he looked great off halfback, plenty of touches, a couple marks back there. Wasn't playing as accountable as he was last weekend, so again, just shows that when he can play the role that he's meant to be in, he does find the peel. So I'm happy for him to be there as my D6 for now. Got a good matchup this weekend, so he'll just be another one I put straight on field with up against St Kilda. McCarthy sitting on the bench for me, as I said, with a 76. Again, if you had him on field, you wouldn't be too disappointed with a 76. He probably was on the lower end of your best scores, so if you can get him up to a best player, I wouldn't mind doing that. Or sorry, not moving him on, but getting a better player in his position and looping him would definitely be the play. Again, he could drop a bad score at any stage, but he still looked great in that game with the 19 touches. Still, it took a fair few kick-ins as well that did improve, which was nice to see. Brayshaw, as I said, an 85, his lowest score for a little while. Been disappointing for the last 3 weeks, realistically. 88% time on ground, which was positive, but I guess my point here is Sydney are starting to really look like the tough Sydney of last year. So I guess that's something that we've got to keep in mind of for the remainder of the season, that their matchups and numbers against them may not be a true reflection of what they're actually going to be like. For the remainder of the season, they're looking pretty tough, and I think he was the second highest scorer for their team with only 85, which is pretty disappointing. Sydney are looking pretty tough at the stage. So keep that in mind when you're looking at future trade-ins or captaincies going into the final rounds of the season. Dacos just got the ball willy-nilly in that Carlton game. Just really had no attention, which was a bit surprising. Back-to-back 130s for him. So if you did go there with the captaincy, well done to you. He just got it done, and he's starting to get these marks around the ground, which is a pretty big positive. Obviously hitting the scoreboard as well. Kicked a goal in every single last of his 5 games, and could have had a few bigger ones as well with a few misses. But yeah, getting it done at this stage. Another great matchup this weekend against the Suns. Probably should be another 130 coming up, so he'll probably feature pretty highly in the captaincies again. Sinclair, 92, okay in the end, but yeah, not getting it done in the last sort of 3 weeks. Hoping for a better return, but does have Sydney this week, so yeah, it could be a bit of pain. But again, looking at this sort of 5-week stretch coming up, so I'm still probably just in the hold camp. You'll probably want him towards the back end of the season, so yeah, it's probably worth just holding for now. Bont put up another ceiling score, 133 in a very good net matchup as sort of expected. 25 touches, 5 marks, 10 tackles, and 2 goals. He is potentially a target. He does have some tougher matchups in the next 2 against Crows and the Lions, so he may have a couple tougher games there. I could see him getting potentially some attention from a Berry as such. He's obviously a huge tackler and does have a bit of a tank to run with these sort of players, so I could see that happening. And obviously a Dunkley probably goes with him in that game against Brisbane Lions. So yeah, bit of one to watch. I probably wouldn't trade there just with his track record in the last sort of month or so, to be honest. Ned Long and Doherty both putting up these sort of 80 scores. If you traded out either one of them, you wouldn't be too disappointed at the end of the day. Doherty is probably the main concern for me. He put up 40 points in that first quarter and then really slowed from there. I couldn't really tell if it was a role change as such, or just the fact that he couldn't find the pill. But yeah, he just really slowed from there, only scoring 44 points for the remainder of the game. So yeah, he's a bit of a concern up against Brisbane Lions. Again, tough matchup, so could be one that you move on this week if he gets you up to the player you're looking at, which he obviously has a huge amount of money on his head, 918k, so he can go if you want to move him on. Very similar to Ned Long, 370 to 80 scores on the trot. Does have a nicer matchup this weekend against the Suns, so I could see him bouncing back. But yeah, there was no real concern with his role. He still played that mostly midfielder, even with Tom Mitchell in the side. But again, with these middle scores, he can go at any stage, so wouldn't mind jumping off him if you can. Cherry, he should have probably had a 115 to 120. Just spent the remaining 15 minutes on the pine with a bit of a concussion protocols. He did pass, luckily, so he is not a forced trade at this stage. Fingers crossed that he does pull up for the game on the weekend. Does have Grundy, so is a tougher matchup. He only scored a 90 against him so far early in the season in round 2. So there is a bit of concern there that if you're looking to make a bit of a trade, you could do that because he does have 2 tough matchups in the next 2. So he could play a bit of a jump off him for the next 2 weeks and then jump back on him later on. But I guess it's just who you're jumping on to. I guess it's probably Grundy. If you don't own a Grundy, he could be a bit of a point upgrade who could go massive this week against Merrill Marshall. Should expect probably a 130, 140 from him there. So that's an interesting thing. If you're in a bit of a luxury position up there fighting for the car or hats. And then the forwards, realistically, the only one I want to mention was Rankin. He obviously put up a nice ton with 5 goals. Very pleasant to see. Played mostly forward, only 25% CBA, so that role is pretty much gone. So even though he had put up a nice score, he would be a pretty target I'd be looking to trade at if you can, and potentially goes for me this week if my trades go to plan. But yeah, that's how the team sort of performed. Again, pretty happy with how things are going at the stage. Still continue to move up and into a prime position. But I'll finish off the video with a bit of a summary of what my trades are looking at so far. So this is where I'm at the current stage. I've obviously got Rankin going, and I'm trading at Zach Johnson at the stage. Even though he's not fully fattened with 22 break even and up against a Richmond matchup, he could be a nice one to loop and see how it goes. But just with the way my team is structured up at the moment, if I want to bring in a looping option for Tom McCarthy and Tom Stewart with the 2 Toms there, I need to bring in a red dot rookie as a defender, and that's where Cooper comes in at this stage. Looking at sort of the best team to put as a looping option, I think North is sort of the best one. It was sort of a toss-up between North, St Kilda, and West Coast. They all sort of have a lot of late Saturday and Sunday games, so they'll provide pretty good options. It would have been nice to have someone with DPP, so I can shift him into the midfield if I needed to. But at the end of the day, I do have Ted Closey that could probably do that at any stage anyway. So yeah, that's where I sort of am without my trades. Obviously, bringing in Bailey Smith. As I said, he's got the GWS Giants, who he put up a 149 against them last season. Early in the year. So expecting another big score from him as well. And obviously, the run is pretty phenomenal. So sort of locked into my trades a little bit. Obviously, if Bailey Smith doesn't come in, I can pretty much trade in anyone with a lot of money in hand. I do have 24k remaining, so I do have a little bit more to spend there if I wanted to, or even save a bit of coin. Obviously, I could go to I think a few trading options. A lot of people are looking at. Obviously, a lot of cheaper guys with merit. He obviously went massive. Again, I probably wouldn't go there in myself. I'll probably just bring it up here and. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Trading options. So Merit, obviously a huge one. A lot of people are trading in. Golden, if you're looking to pay up top dollar, I definitely recommend it. He is just getting it done with a 127, back-to-back 120s, which is massive. McRae, if you're looking to spend up in the forward line, he is at a very decent price tag at 934k with a 123. And that's where I said I left a lot of points on the table. I could have easily traded in a Jack McRae instead of a Myers and got that extra 20 points. But at the end of the day, I felt a lot more comfortable with a Myers for the run home with a better fixture. But again, I like what Jack McRae's been able to do, and his fixture coming up as well is pretty decent. So he's one that I definitely would target in the coming weeks. Butters, another great target, put up the 119 on the weekend against the tough matchup against Brisbane Lions. Does have the Eagles this weekend, so definitely expecting a bit of a pop score there, not seeing any attention. Does have some tougher games coming up, though, against Hawks and Crows, although he does sort of get up for those games. Got a 105 against Hawks 105 early in the season against the Hawks and a 95 against the Crows as well. So he doesn't seem to mind them too badly. So definitely can look at him. And that's probably about it for trading targets. Like I said, Bontempelli's there as well. Whitfield was another interesting one that we need to discuss a little bit more in depth with his high break even. I'm probably thinking wait a week against the Cats. Could be a bit of a tougher matchup, but we know Whitfield can definitely return with some mighty form. So looking at him fairly closely in the coming weeks as well, with a decent fixture coming up against the Cats, and then obviously Essendon in the next two, before having a bit of a tougher one against Sydney and Western Bulldogs, and then finishing pretty strong on the way home as well. So he will be cheap for us at some stage, and you definitely want to grab him there. So But that's pretty much about it, honestly, guys. The only other thing I guess to say is just a reminder to looking at your loops, looking at the fixture for the remainder of this weekend. I think Colton again play fairly early, so if you're not training out a Sam Doherty, you could look at potentially looping options with him. So have a look at that. And yeah, pretty much. Hopefully, you guys had a great weekend. Please leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things as you always do. Besides that, I will catch you guys Wednesday for trade mode, guys. Cheers very much. Have a good one. Bye.